Welcome to Thursday, May 2nd, 2019, Town of Prescott Valley Work Study Meeting and Community Facilities Districts. Clerk, if you can call the roll.
Mayor Palguda.
Present.
Vice Mayor Nye.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Grossman.
Here.
Councilmember Mallory.
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Present.
And Councilmember Packard.
Present.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Move on to number 3, discussion of Antelope Park Well Equipping Project, CIP number W442.B, construction contract. Sir?
You have any questions? Is that good?
Oh, I love that presentation. Was superb.
Right. So I'm going to combine. See you next year. So you've got 2 items on here, and if you don't mind, I'll talk about them all as one because it's both related to the Antelope Park well site.
Sounds great.
Okay. So next week, I'm going to bring before you 2 contracts to award, and so I thought I'd just give you a heads up because you won't see those RFCAs. We won't have the bids in until Monday. One of them is for equipping the well at Antelope Park, which is up there. It's actually on the site of Coyote Springs Elementary School. We purchased a little piece of property from them right across the street from Antelope Park. And so those bids will come in Monday. One of them is for equipping the well. The well drilling is almost done. They're a little bit behind schedule. They've had a number of difficulties with that hole. The hole has collapsed a couple of times. We had trouble. They didn't drill it straight. So it's gone longer than it should have. But we'll award the well equipping project, which is the above ground stuff, the house, the controls, the electric, the on-site electrical, all that stuff. And the other contract will be the off-site electrical, which is the power coming from APS, basically the extension cord to the site for the power. As you may know, even though those are APS facilities, we are required to install the conduits, install the equipment pads, and then they will come in with their crews and they will pull the wire and get it up and running, and then it will be theirs to own and operate. And so the well equipping project is probably going to be in the $500,000 range. We have pre-purchased equipment that we will be giving to them to use. The other contract for the offsite electrical, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking $150,000 to $200,000 at this point. We'll find out on Monday, and we'll bring it back to you.
That's all we can ask for. Any questions? Nicely done, sir.
See you next week.
Thank you.
So now we'll just move on to item 5, discussion of proposed fiscal year 2019-20 budget for discussion only. And first up, yes, ma'am.
Well, you all know or now have met Barbara Lear. She's been our consultant. She tells me that, I don't know, does Larry even realize how many years that Barbara's been working with us?
25, 28, 30,
She tells me that this is her 35th.
35th. Okay.
Yes, so you know she knows our benefits like the back of her hand and the history from the beginning of time, practically, right? So she always helps me tonight with the HR component of the budget process. I'm going to turn the mic over to her first to talk about our health and dental and insurance renewals, and then I'll finish up with the HR budget items.
Karen,
Yes.
we're also convinced she has a magic wand.
She does.
Yes.
Yes, she does. She does create miracles.
I hope I live up to all of that. I haven't even started here.
Wowzers.
The report that I handed to you, this is our annual renewal review of all of our employee benefits that make up our benefit package. And if you'll turn to page 1, I've highlighted the background of when we moved back to Blue Cross, which was 2005. And again, you can see the rate history has been most favorable. We have 8 years where we've had actually a 0 renewal when everyone else in the world, was having renewals in the mid-teens as being pretty typical for group health insurance, unfortunately. So we've had actually 8 years, zeros or less. And then it's good to take note that in 2015, we began a pattern of significantly larger claims, more claims and more utilization, higher claims all over. In fact, our loss ratio of premiums paid to the insurance company versus claims paid out, our loss ratio was the worst that it had been in 13 years, starting in 2015. In 2015, we really had the first, I would call it real rate increase of 8.8%. And you'll notice that 4.8% of that was for the Affordable Care Act, ACA, or better known as Obamacare, which perhaps you're aware of, charges taxes and fees as part of that legislation. I made it a personal goal then in 2016 to hopefully get the insurance company to erase as much of that 8.8% as was possible. And so we had a rate decrease of 7.6%. Pretty unheard of with these group health insurance carriers, but we deserved it. Our claims had gotten better, and there was an opportunity to negotiate that, and so we took it. In 2017, then, you'll notice that the initial renewal was 13%, which was pretty typical of insurance companies that year. And it was lowered to only 2%. And again, 1.5% of that were the ACA fees. Then, last year, our renewal, because of, again, a lot of high claims and high utilization, the initial renewal was actually over 27%. And after 3 months of negotiation, it went down to 11% and then down to an overall cost increase of 10%. This was actually overdue by about 12 years, clearly. And so that was really our first real rate increase. The renewal components of this year's renewal are highlighted there. Each year, there is an annual medical inflationary trend that's built into the renewal. And this year, it's about 9%, which is typical. Our claims experience is considered fully credible, 100% credible. And that's based on our current population of 219 employees and 303 dependents insured. The loss ratio, as I mentioned, which is the ratio between paid claims and paid premium, is more favorable this year, 86%. Of course, that's compared to the insurance company's target loss ratio of 75%. Now, last year it was 95%, so we have had some improvement, happy to say. Part of that overall claims experience is 16 large claims which are over $30,000, and you can see they range from a little over $30,000 to about $185,000, okay? And when you look at those figures, keep in mind that those are paid claims after the negotiated discounts, and the negotiated in-network discounts average about 50% off retail. Okay. Now, last year's claims, as you can see, we had 22 over 30,000 for a total of $1,243,000. So our 16 large claims this year were actually close to $100,000 more for only 16 claims. And I can tell you we have 2 or 3 major ongoing diagnoses, and they are continuing to be ongoing diagnoses and claims even into this year, because of course, you know, our fiscal year is 7/1, and they've rolled forward into our next policy year already. So basically, our claims have continued to increase for the last 4 to 5 years. And as I mentioned already, we were already 12 years overdue for a real rate increase, which we had last year. But that 10% rate increase last year, we all recognized, and we spent a lot of time analyzing those claims. Actually, we prepared for a double digit this year. We considered that 10% cost increase last year was about half of what we really should have had as I'd call it a rate correction. Our demographics continue to be just about the same. Each year our employees get a year older, of course, and even though we are hiring some newer employees, the average still remains the same. So we have 39% of our total population over the age of 50.
Ma'am, in comparison with other towns,
We are older.
We are?
Mayor, yes, we are older.
Gotcha.
But, you know, that can be explained that we have a very well-organized and experienced core of employees that stay with us.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, healthcare reform legislation, even in the final renewal that we are ending up with this year, still includes 1.5% for the Obamacare taxes and fees. The next page then shows you and highlights you the actual negotiations this year. This year, we started out with a 12% renewal from the underwriters, and if we had chosen to accept that, that would have been an increase to the town's budget of, as you can see, over $280,000 a year. There are the different increments that it took to get down to the final renewal this year. It took about 2.5 months this year to get down to 5.75%. And again, that includes 1.5% for the ACA fees. So, bottom line, negotiations this year saved us a little under $150,000 a year. I do want to mention that in November and December of 2018, just before the underwriters were looking at our renewal, our claims broke all previous records. We had $348,000 of paid claims in November and close to $400,000 of paid claims in December. And again, remember, that's after a 50% in-network discount. So the timing was not good for underwriters to be looking at our renewal. Could not have been worse. Again, all current benefits remain the same. Frankly, I haven't asked for any change in benefits for 10 years. I know our goal is to try to maintain, as long as possible, the high level of benefits that we have with Blue Cross, and we've been able to accomplish that. Part of that goal as well is to keep the employee contribution, the cost to the employees, as affordable as possible. And in this case, the increase is $22.12 a month, and then they pay that under IRS Code Section 125, and so that is reduced because they don't pay taxes on it. That's reduced to a little over $16.50 a month as an increase, which everyone, I'm sure, can understand that that's quite reasonable. I will tell you that this 5.75% was negotiated after dealing with the underwriting team, the underwriting manager, and then going to a senior management of Blue Cross, overall senior management, in order to get exceptions made. And the exceptions really come from not using the standard underwriting formula that should have been used. And that's the key to negotiating these health renewals, getting the right people at Blue Cross that have the authority to make those exceptions completely throw out the underwriting formula. That's hard to do because underwriters are actuaries, and actuaries, like to follow the numbers. So I know people every year ask, well, how do you get that done? That is the answer, that, you just get them to make exceptions. This particular underwriter, too, also, and senior management told me that this year, in order to get to the 5.75%, they're at a break-even point. So no profit at all to Blue Cross, which is fine. They're an insurance company. Our group health insurance rate history, as you can see, quite favorable. Our 13-year average, 2% a year. 5-year average 4% and 6% for the last 3 years, in spite of having a slight increase this year and the 10% last year. So again, quite favorable on the long-term basis, which is important. And as you can see, the original renewals, when I've taken those into consideration, they would have averaged 15.6% prior to negotiations. Our Emeritus dental plan, we've been with Emeritus, for a number of years. We've been very happy with their service. This year, our initial renewal increase was actually quite favorable at 2%. I got that erased to 0. And really, I want to talk about the fact that last year, for those of you who remember, that we implemented a new PPO dental plan. And we designed that plan specifically hoping that it would increase the in-network utilization, the local dentists, and the utilization of those dentists. It worked. It worked quite well. So we were able to increase the benefit maximum for employees overall from 1,000 to 1,500. So a very handsome increase in benefits. Last year, we improved the eyewear spending account moved it from 100 to 150, and this year it's up to 200. It is a meaningful benefit for those who do wear glasses, and $200 is certainly much more meaningful than $100 a couple of years ago. It was really outdated. And that is a real spending account. That's part of the overall $1,500 maximum for those people who choose to use it for eyewear benefits. We also introduced incentive coinsurance so employees can increase the percentage paid by the insurance company if they only submit one claim a year. So hopefully a lot of employees have taken advantage of that part of the plan. The other thing, when I designed it, I made sure that we preserved the previous non-network, out-of-network benefits, so no employees lost any benefits. They only had an opportunity to gain more benefits. And that incentive plan certainly did work. We increased our in-network utilization by 16% in 1 year. That's amazing. That's really an amazing result. So again, the design worked beautifully. Our 10-year average increase with Emeritus, 2% and 1% over the last 5 years, taking into consideration the dental inflationary trend alone is about 8%. So again, we're way ahead of the curve. As part of our benefit package, we have basic life insurance. It's term life insurance, life and accidental death and dismemberment. The benefit itself is 1 times your basic annual salary. It has been to $75,000. We are enhancing it this year to $100,000. The last time we changed this benefit and enhanced it and updated it was 2013. So we were way overdue to update this benefit. It affected approximately another 40 employees, just for your information. By doing so, then, we are moving to AXA Equitable, which is a new partnership under the Blue Cross Blue Shield corporate umbrella. The end result is a lower rate with a 2-year rate guarantee and enhanced benefits. The rates are saving us $9,000 a year, which is not a lot, but still, everything counts. And the benefits are going from $75,000 to $100,000. So a total win-win on the group life insurance. And then, as a review, the annual cost increase for 218 employees and 107 families, you can see $125,000. We had the 5.75% on the employee and dependent health contributions, the reduction for the group life insurance, and then we were still under a 2-year rate guarantee for the long-term and short-term disability. Questions?
No, fabulous job, like always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Barbara. We appreciate that. Human Resources, we know, starts on, page 6 dash, turn with you, to 6-71.
Find on my book this time.
And I actually just want to go over a few of the objectives that we want to accomplish next year in the new fiscal year. So on page 72 of chapter 6, you can kind of divide the objectives that we have in human resources in 3 different components. The first 4 bullets that are listed in your budget book for you are all in regards to recruitment and retention. We're going to bring a lot of focus to recruitment and ongoing retention, as we have been, especially on retention the last few years. But working with Ryan and Heidi in the communications area, we'd like to create some additional recruitment videos to help us improve our outreach and advertising initiatives that really showcase the town, our mission, and what our employees do in a positive light that would encourage applicants. We'll also be working with the police department in the new fiscal year. We would like to reduce our time to fill in vacancies. We typically average up to 6 weeks, and we brought that down to 5. I'd even want to get that down to 4. It does mean that we need the assistance of supervision in each of the departments, but I think it's an attainable goal and one that we're going to continue to work for, starting with a focus in the police department. As part of retention, we worked on the exit interviews this last year. We're going to continue that effort by creating an electronic survey to be able to expedite for the employees' exit process, and so that they can know what's happening with their benefits and so forth, and for them to be able to provide us feedback and enhance our retention reports. The next couple of bullet points, we want to work at continuing to advance our initiatives in wellness. In fact, just this week, we had a group from the wellness team go down to Phoenix to accept for the second year in a row the Platinum Award from the state, which is the highest level of recognition for our corporate wellness program. So we were honored to get that accomplished again, year 2, and thank the wellness team and all the employees for their participation and embracement of the wellness program. So 2 things that we're going to be looking at in the new year that we've not done before includes researching the interests that employees might have, and then the actual feasibility to provide a new wellness challenge under the intellectual dimension of our wellness program, which is all about stimulating the mind and mental capacity, valuing lifelong learning by offering bilingual classes. We do have some employees that English is their second language, and so they struggle with English, but they're, of course, great with Spanish, and then the rest of us struggle with Spanish. And we thought that would be an awesome opportunity to get those employees together to be able to learn from each other. Through offering some kind of wellness challenge in bilingual classes. Also then to enhance our social dimension of wellness, which is all about developing and maintaining healthy work relationships, we have things like the gala and other activities that bring employees together. Our ping pong tournaments, for example, is one that's been very successful. But another that we're going to be looking at in the new year we've never done is what we'll probably call something like employee lunch bunches, where employees that have similar interests in hobbies, financial planning, whether it's sewing, crafting, what have you, would have a gaming, card games just over their lunch hour that they can connect with like-minded employees that maybe they otherwise wouldn't associate with across departments for that additional interaction. And then the last set of bullet points are really just more about administrative objectives that we want to accomplish, including several internal audits. We now have full staffing in human resources, although we did downgrade our administrative support position from 40 hours to 28 hours as part of the reorg that we did this year. But with Jamie now at the helm as our benefits manager, we have 2 full-time staffers and plus the admin, that we're going to finally be able to reach some needs that we have in auditing our own processes and records. We'll also be working hard at supporting IT and the overall initiatives with the town and implementing the new website. We have a member on that team, and how that impacts the intranet and the employees' experience in getting information with the town. Turnover, as always, I know of interest. That's on page 73 for you. We are at about 11.5% this year, based on potential retirements and awareness of some employee situations. I'm projecting a 13% turnaround or turnover rate next year, but kind of hanging around in that 11 to 13%, which is very standard throughout the national trends. On page 74, and the that I want to share with you in the budget book, it's like, okay, we took our 2% in HR, but you'll notice under expenditures by category, HR's budget actually went down, both in personnel services and operation expenditures, and that's because my own salary and some of the expenditures I have for training, certification, so forth, we've moved out of human resources and into executive management. So that's why you see the decline there. Other than that, if you were to look at the detail in our fund lines and human resources, there's only one line that significantly changed in the amount of $5,000. We moved it from awards to meetings, and that $5,000 is to help us with the gala expenses. It just fit better under the meeting initiatives. And then last that I wanted to point out to you was a flyer that we created, and Larry has been sharing with all the employees Tuesday and Wednesday this week as we ran around with our open enrollment and budget information to employees. It really was, I thought, a nice way to summarize for you what's in your budget book on pages 11-1 through 11-7 with the personnel schedules and some interesting facts about the changes in the pay plan. As you know, our goal was to not only compete with the market, but to excel in the marketplace. And there were several other changes within the market from other entities in the last 2 years. And as we did our salary study this year, we actually had several positions, about 15 in fact, that were at 80% of the market. We wanted to be, and always have strived, to be at 100% of the market. So we made global changes throughout the pay plan. You'll see on this handout, as we shared with employees, that 89% of our workforce will see that pay range, not necessarily a pay increase for them individually, but their pay range being adjusted by a 9% or somewhat more to get them to that 100% location of the market. That impacted 216 people. The 11% of the organization, the rest of the town, except our town manager, who refused for any kind of changes in his pay grade. We appreciate his leadership. 11% or 27 people had their pay ranges adjusted by 3%. And that is because in 2016, each year we do this compensation study. In 2016, we did an executive salary study. So there had already been some changes there. They didn't have much to go to make sure that we were competitive at 100% of the market. I also went and took a look at today and recapped of those that actually will receive a $1 increase to bring them up to the new minimum. I thought you might have an interest in that. It's 78 individuals that will actually receive an additional bump in their compensation to bring them to the new minimum. That's 32% of our workforce. Another 41 people, as kind of correlated with Barb said, with the $100,000 in life insurance, 41 individuals are max at their range. And so now that gives those 41 people, or 17% of our workforce, additional growth potential in their salary, which we will hope helps us with retention of those individuals. One last thing maybe to point out on that is bullet point number 4 there. As we all know, Arizona minimum wage is currently at $11. It will be increasing to $12 in January of 2020. However, with these changes in our pay plan, we took the initiative that the town of Prescott Valley's minimum wage for our regular staff will be no less than $13 an hour. So we've got minimum wage beat.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah. Our library aides and some of the very entry-level positions were really excited to hear that it's not only going to go to above $12, but they get that in July rather than waiting until January. So it really made an impact, and employees were very appreciative as Larry and I went around and shared this information, and they thanked council and your leadership in taking care of our employees and remaining competitive in northern Arizona's municipalities. So, any questions, comments that I can help with?
Mayor and council, if I could, I need to compliment Karen on the work that she and her team did with the restructuring of the compensation system. It was way outside of the box that she's used to working in. And we made the analogy that she would go through annually with a scalpel to go ahead and make adjustments to market rate as appropriate. And I suggested the scalpel needed to go away and an axe needed to come out to do it. And there was a little bit of resistance at first, but then, boom, went forward and did excellent work pulling that together. So hats off to Karen for that.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of fun. on the handout, those positions that have an asterisk behind them are those 15 positions that needed more than 9% to get to 100% of the market. So they got additional bumps so that we are there in every single case. And I rechecked it today. I went back and I pulled all my market data and I went through the new pay plan. I'm like, check, 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 yes. So we've accomplished that.
Nicely done, ma'am.
Okay.
Bravo.
Thank you for your time.
Moving on is Miss Casey Van Haren.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So, we're on page 6-124. Prior, we kind of revamped things with some of our accomplishments. We really brought them down to crucial core elements that we needed to work on for the library. So, you might see, wow, we really slimmed down, but we need to focus on some important strategic initiatives. One thing that I want to add, bring your attention to, is we added another strategic goal, which was maximize citizen involvement in achieving our vision, which of course is part of the town. We have the largest volunteer base in the town. They all work at the library. So I thought that was important to pull out the statistics of that, because our volunteers are extremely important to us at the library, and they really help us and the town bring forth in our vision and our mission. So we thought that it was important to pull that out. To get down to the nitty-gritty, the total capital outlay, Larry was so gracious to give us a lot of money. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're so appreciative. We're focusing on the projector equipment upgrade. Our projectors are almost 10 years old, and of course with technology, things are out of date very quickly. So I'll be working with Casey Danner to figure out how, and Bobby Kieran also, to figure out how we're going to get quality equipment that people can use again. We're also going to remove the indoor rock and put concrete so people don't break their ankles and fall into the rock. It's really, really messy. And also we're retrofitting the second floor lighting. That's going to be upstairs more in the adult and the children's area because it's really dark up there. And that's it.
Casey, the filling in of the cinder area, was that because of Karen?
I know. I know. I've almost fallen into it. So, yeah, we really need to work on getting rid of that. So, all right. Any questions?
All was good, I think.
I'm DUN.
Casey, we just weren't sure. Did you add an employee, or were you making adjustments for Sunday still, or were we not?
So I will be presenting to council the work, the results of that, but everything as it is for our budget. There's no change in staffing.
Okay.
We didn't get that. We just got money.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know what our little individual units were called. I always called them modules, but you moved them out.
Oh, the campsites. Yes.
There you go, campsites. I couldn't remember what we originally called them. I just wondered, A, where they went, and have you realized the benefit you hoped for when you moved them out?
I don't know where they went. We had a contractor take them out. So, yeah.
So they're gone from our life forever.
They're gone. I have had so many people compliment us. It's like it's lighter in the building. Yeah. There's more room. So we've had a lot of people say how awesome it is that those campsites are gone. We have that line of sight. And it does. It really opened it up and made it really bright.
I particularly think it's important, that line of sight.
Yes.
It's so noticeable. Anybody that's never been here would know what we're talking about, but it's quite remarkable how different the line of sight is.
It is. It looks amazing.
And when we think of mischievous people in the building, that's an asset.
Awesome. All right. Thank
Nicely
you.
done, ma'am. Mr. Whitty, you're up.
Well, I come to you tonight with a tear in my eye.
What?
It's the end of our 40th anniversary year.
Oh.
So it's a major bummer. And other than that, you've saddled me with a master plan process in the next fiscal year. So thanks a lot, 2 years in a row, all of you.
We could do 41. Want to do 41?
41? Okay.
No,
Well,
do 40. Let's just keep
let's
them
just drop
rolling
another
through. Yeah.
little bit in the bucket here. So
Another
I'm
bucket.
doing that. Yeah, don't get too sad there.
We like buckets.
Oh. Well, good evening, everyone. I want to more or less thank everyone for all of last fiscal year. It was a blast in doing all of those things. We mentioned the 40th and all the fun that we had through those processes of New Year's Eve celebration, drive-in movies, record-setting years with Polar Bear. We're going to have a lot of fun coming into the next year. I say that because we're going to be wrapping up a new gymnasium over in Mountain Valley Park. We have more playgrounds coming into the future, all of those kinds of good things. Overall, the department's budget is somewhat flat with the exception of a couple of different areas. In admin, we're adding another $25,000. That's going to focus on our master plan. We have parks with some landscaping increases with new parks coming on board. Of course, associated to that will also be our electricity and our water increases in our parks division. Aside from those things, other elements of that relate to personnel. As you've heard earlier tonight, those adjustments that are being made. We are adding one new full-time position, but we're adjusting that with some of our part-time permanent positions with a new recreation supervisor, so our tree will change a little bit. In addition to that, big exciting elements relate more in regards to capital projects. We have some updates and replacements in aquatics. We have some art and culture elements that we're going to be looking at with our street banner program, so we can celebrate via that on a seasonal basis up and down our roadways. Some new turf equipment as our inventory continues to grow. We also need to be replacing certain pieces as they have about 20 years on them. We're also going to look at to improve our fleet, and then also some new attachments for improved turf care conditions again in our parks division. In addition to that, with the improvements that we're making over at the Boys and Girls Club, we're going to make some updates to the parking lot over there. Also some substantial concrete repairs in a variety of different locations in our park system. And then the big ticket items, we're going to be focusing over on the new Granville Unit 6 park with the athletic field construction, some court developments, Ramada over at American Legion, and then also Ramada and fence over at Granville Park coming into that area. So with those little tidbits, I'm happy to answer any questions you have related to the department's budget.
Get ready, Brian.
Here we go. Yes, ma'am.
I'd be run out of town on a rail if I did not ask why the arts and culture took such a hit.
Why did arts and culture take such a hit?
It's down from $99,916 to $54,189. And I have the same question about the special events budget.
Well, special events is definitely a tribute to all the 40th anniversary.
Okay.
100%
I
there.
expected that answer, but make me a little happier in explaining the arts and culture loss.
We're going to go
We're
through...
going backwards instead of forwards with arts and culture, and that is not acceptable for this community.
That is a good question. Oh, yes. It had 100% to do with the staffing adjustment there. So in regards to that full-time position in arts and culture, it went into administration. So that was about $40,000 of that change
it's
and
personnel,
adjustment.
not
It's
actual
personnel.
product.
Yes.
It's not
Not in
events,
operations, no.
It's not art. It's
No.
not anything like
If
that.
you look at our total operating in arts and culture, it went up actually about $2,500, $3,000.
Okay,
Yes.
reflect that so I don't have any more heart effects.
Literally, it just went from one division to another.
I
Yeah,
know, but
in the same way, HR looked like there was this cut.
Yeah.
Actually, not really.
But I
true.
knew about HR. I didn't know about
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Katie
And I
with the
apologize.
save right there.
When
Good job,
I'm
Katie.
reflecting with budget with you, I'm reflecting in regards to total dollars. In regards to their operating fund.
Okay.
Personnel would be another segment of that. And that's where overall, in the big change of things, it just a personnel shift from one division
So
to
I'm
another.
safe.
You
I
are
will not
100%
be run
safe.
out of town
You will
or
not.
tired.
No tar and feather, no rail, no worries, no issues.
Stoning tonight.
Of me at least, no. Yeah. So no, we're in good shape there.
All right, one more, Brian.
So I just have to say
Yes, ma'am.
that I am absolutely ecstatic over that Ramada for the American Legion Park, and you have made those people so happy, and I just can't thank all of you enough. Oh my gosh, that park has needed some love and tender care for a few years. It's been getting it, and I think hopefully by the end of this year we're going to do a great ribbon cutting, have the American Legion over there, and just really, open this up. That whole neighborhood is just
Right.
ecstatic over that park. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Well, and other than a few things that we've done, staff time, a few little operation dollars, a large part of all of that change and effort has come through the Friends organization, through donations, grants, contributions, volunteer time, you name it. So it's happened in that context. This is a rather substantial little item that we have here. It's going to literally finish that park up. It's going to be just as gorgeous as all our other sites in our inventory. So it's a very good thing. So you're welcome.
And that's really exciting because, a lot of times I think about Prescott Valley, and so, the older parts of Prescott Valley is who paved the way.
Right.
And today, all the newer parts have benefited from those people that put in all the infrastructure, all of those things, So I don't ever want those areas to be all forgotten. And we have a lot of new community development that comes in, and that's fabulous. But the foundation of everything is always important.
Exactly, and we have definitely accomplished a large amount of that this year. Our playground improvements over at George Anderson, Mountain Valley Park expansion elements over there. So we are getting back into that. The playgrounds over in Tonto, at Antelope Park, all of that good stuff. So we're keeping an eye.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Brian. I know the families love it.
Oh, one more, Brian.
I have no more ire. I want to say thank you. I'm probably the only one in the room that was, other than you, that was on the 40th anniversary committee. You never fainted. You never threatened to run us out of town. And the committee just kept coming up with all of these things we wanted. And it's appropriate for me to thank you and your staff for honoring what we came up with and allow us to do some wild things, like having weddings.
Yes, and some
et cetera,
Hollywood
et cetera.
squares.
And I don't want your staff to ever think that we didn't understand we were adding a burden onto them. But our citizens want us to do it every year. That's how successful it was. So thank you and your staff.
You are welcome. And we are keeping some of those elements, to your point. So the drive-in movie is continuing. We're actually going to be continuing Father's Day weekend with a little touch and flair coming back from the 40th. So lots of good stuff. So it helped catapult as well.
Yeah,
Nice job,
and
Brian.
we will have bigger screens for the drive-in, or more screens.
I'm trying my best.
That was the only thing that didn't work extremely well. But guess what? The citizens out there will come back even for those smaller screens. They loved it.
Yes.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome, sir. Have a good evening.
It's Katie.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. So tonight, I'm going to talk to you about management services first. I'll be back up in a little bit to go over some other areas. But as far as management services goes, we actually had a large decrease this year, as we mentioned yesterday, due to information technology being split into its own department. Otherwise, management services has stayed pretty even. There's no additions to staff, no capital expenditures expected next year, and we're kind of business as usual right now. In the next few years, we may be looking at additional staff as the town continues to grow, potentially in our customer accounts division, and as well as in our finance division, possibly a grant coordinator type position eventually. But this year, it's pretty basic, so unless you all have any questions.
I don't believe so. Thank you, ma'am.
We just want to congratulate you that you survived and how pleased we are with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Katie.
Thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen?
Mayor and Council, if it's okay, I'll just go ahead and tackle the water resource recharge part of this, and then Neil can stay at the podium for his 2 sections. In water resource and recharge, as always, we're focused on securing and growing our water portfolio, reaching safe yield, and ensuring those sustainable water supplies for our residents. The main page that I'm focusing on here is page 1028. We've had an issue with effluent. We kind of have too much of it right now, and we need to get it in the ground. We generate at the wastewater plant about 600 to 800 acre-feet additional effluent that we actually donate to the aquifer, but we don't get credit for because of all the unusual circumstances with recharge facilities, the permitting issues, and all of that. So the main focus in the budget will be developing additional recharge facilities to put that water in the ground. We plan to focus on using recharge injection wells. So we currently have a contract with a consulting firm that will be doing some geological testing, drilling some deep boreholes, looking for that sweet spot where we can put the water directly into the water table, get it below this 400-foot of thick clay that we have in Prescott Valley that impedes the water moving down. So as you see, the big influence on the budget is that recharge injection well. They're relatively expensive. There's a few unusual things that go into one of those that you wouldn't see on a regular production well. In addition to that, finishing up some issues at the North Plains Recharge Facility. We need some SCADA facilities out there, $40,000. We continue with 2 agreements that we operate for the Big Chino Water Ranch project. One is our continuing agreement with the City of Prescott over the ownership of the ranch and the water rights as we develop that, $200,000 this year. And then we have an ongoing agreement that includes the City of Prescott and Salt River Project to make sure that our eventual withdrawals from that basin are done safely and in consideration for the environment. Going down to the Upper Verde Watershed Protection Coalition, those are grant-funded site improvements. So these are projects we do, such as developing rainwater harvesting and recharge projects, erosion control recharge projects, and watershed improvements such as brush control. With that, any questions?
I have one. Regarding the recharge injection wells, will that enhance our credits at a faster rate?
Well, what it'll allow us to do is take a good portion of the water that we're currently not getting credit for and get that in the ground. So it'll be additional capacity to put water in the ground. We're targeting the first well to do around 500 gallons a minute in, rather than much of what you've heard about from Neil is 500 to 1,000 gallons of water out, but we have to do both to balance the aquifer. So I'm not sure if that addresses your question. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So finishing up, I've got a little bit under recharge. Essentially the portion that I deal with under there, other than helping John with some of that stuff, is related to the operational parts of that. And there are really no significant changes from last year's budget. You will see a 2.5% increase allotted to operations, which is the contract that we have with Jacobs, formerly CH2M. So really there's no other significant changes under there. The other portion of it would be under recharge, under reclaimed water. And likewise, we have no significant changes under there. There is a little bit of I believe, a change in the power, but we kind of expect that from year to year. So other than that, I have nothing really to present on those. So if you don't have any questions, I'll move on to the big ones.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, so I guess there's only a couple things I want to talk about related to operations, and primarily Jacobs is a big part of our operations budget. And as I mentioned under recharge, we're programming in a 2.5% increase for them overall across the board. Actually, I'm going to be coming back to you on May 16th work study because I want to talk to you more specifically about their contract. So even though we put 2.5% in there, there's a possibility that it could be less than that. I will save that information for later on, but that's what we're programming in. The other thing is that one of the line items, which was our we had typically been putting in dollars for water meters, for putting in the radio read meters. By the end of this fiscal year, we will be done with the residential, essentially the smallest 5/8 inch meters. We will be done putting in and replacing the manual read meters. So that'll be done at the end of this fiscal year. There is another component of that project that we're not budgeting any money for this year. We're going to let it rest. We've got a couple other things to focus on. But in a future year, potentially next, the following year, the transmitters need to get swapped out on about 8,000 of our meters. Those are the ones that they are radio, but they are associated with our drive-by vehicular unit. So we still have to have somebody go out and drive within a quarter of a mile of those meters in order to get the radio signal to pick those up. So we will be budgeting in a subsequent year to replace those as well, and then we will have everything on what we call the FlexNet system, which transmits directly to Glassford Hill. Those are kind of the only operational things I was going to talk about on that. Other than power, that's going to go up, and you'll see a significant increase on the water budget. Some of that is due to because our pumping is increasing, but more significantly, a couple other things are going on. Is we're putting more wells in the ground. We have more sites, specific sites. But we have even if we use no power at those sites, we have a budget, or we have money we have to pay, a flat fee, just to have the power available to those sites. And so by increasing those, that's part of the increase that you're seeing on the water side. I think the big thing here then is going to be under the capital line items. As you know, we are working on several new wells this fiscal year. A couple of those are going to bleed into the first part of next year. But we are working on still, in addition to that, a couple of other wells. We're doing some work up at Mingus West right now that we'll probably be introducing another well up in that area in the next fiscal year. But we've got a couple of water tanks programmed in. The Stone Ridge water tank will be going in Those bids, I believe you will be awarding those on May 23rd. I won't be here, but we will receive those bids. Somebody will present that to you. So we will award the Stone Ridge tank. That one will get built over the summer. The Summit tank, which is the larger tank up on Glassford Hill, you probably won't see that until probably about April timeframe. So you'll notice that the budget for that one, even though it's a bigger tank, it's not that much different from what we've got for the Stone Ridge tank, and that's because we're starting it late towards the end of the fiscal year. We're going to budget more money next fiscal year, so it's going to carry or basically straddle the fiscal years. So that's how we're planning on doing that. So mainly more wells and tanks. We're going to look at a design for upsizing the duplex booster station, which is the pumping station that supplies water up to the Summit tank. So because we're going to have now, at that time, we'll have 4 million gallons up there instead of 1 million gallons. We need to be able to pump water up there quicker. We want to keep those tanks filled. So that'll be part of that. And that is something that we're doing in conjunction with, or it's part of the development agreement that we have with Jasper. I think that addresses most of the large water projects. If you have any questions about that, I would answer those, or I can move on to wastewater. Okay. Wastewater. We are planning on purchasing a number of pieces of spare equipment, so essentially pumps and motors, so that we have those on the shelf at the treatment plant in case we have outages for those. So there's the equipment costs that we're looking at this year. We have a number of those. We are planning on purchasing a new sewer camera at $150,000. We get a lot of use out of the one we have. I believe it's on 10 years old and it's falling apart. So we need something new, but one nice thing that we're proposing to get with this new camera, so we'll be able to put it down and camera the main line. We help the customers. We locate blockages. We look at the inside and inspect the pipes. But on this camera, the mainline camera, we're going to have a lateral camera. So it's a camera that launches off the main body, and it can go up into and inspect the laterals that come in from the customer. So, sometimes we have customers that have backups, and it's out under the street or it's too far away. Their plumber can't get a camera in from where their house is. Well, we can go up from our end and help them and look at those things. So it's a really good customer service application. The other thing is that when we have new developments come in and stuff, we like to be able to see those and make sure that those are actually connected, because sometimes they get disconnected when they're doing work on them. And so that's $150,000. We're looking at doing a rehabilitation of the influent lift station at the wastewater treatment plant. So that's a big one. I think that was most of the big stuff. We're going to purchase a few new vehicles as well. Oh, and we're looking at, in combination with the Public Works Department, they're looking at doing some work on Florentine Road, installing storm drain between Truewood and Grizzly down in that area. Well, we have a large diameter sewer line that needs to go in the ground as part of that, and so we're piggybacking on that project. Let's see if I've forgotten anything off my list. I think that pretty much covers everything. So I guess I would open it up to questions if you have any. Go ahead, ma'am.
I don't have a question, but I want to share something with you that Councilman Anderson and I enjoyed last night. As our citizens were coming downstairs, getting ready to go out after the Citizens Academy, I in particular was engaging them because I'm always so interested in how they react to your two presentations. And one of the most significant statements was said to us that this one couple of ladies said how impressed they were with how intelligent our staff is here in Prescott Valley. And that struck me. I shared it with John today, but I didn't have a chance to say it to you. But I want you to know that we as council members are aware of that, and it makes our jobs easier. The other thing that other parts of the groups went by as we were engaging them, they were relieved because now they're not worried about the water, and they didn't understand everything they learned, but they feel better. And I particularly enjoy that. Councilman Anderson just got drug into it because I just kept engaging them as they went by. But I think it's important to know what our citizens think and what benefit they're giving from that. And I want you to know your time was so well spent. And I really want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I enjoy doing that.
I did have one question. When you have to engage the camera for the citizens coming up through the main to their homes, is there a charge to them as a homeowner?
Most of the time, it's usually an unusual situation. So no, we're not. We're launching the camera to see what's going on in the sewer, and so we're there anyways. It's just an added benefit that we can do. We have them go out from time to time to camera and to make sure that things, either they're our fault or they're the responsibility of the citizen. And sometimes it's hard to tell which it is. So, we got to send the camera out sometimes to determine that. And having this added benefit, I think, is just better customer service.
I just know at the cost of that, I don't think it's going to pay for itself really quick. Yeah.
We don't look at that as paying for itself.
No, I know. It's a necessity nobody else wants to have to think about. So thank you very much for all you do.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Katie, you're back up.
Well, we are ahead of schedule tonight. So
Jinx it.
that is very exciting. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our debt for this year. Be aware that the slide that you have in your handouts and what's on screen is only our governmental fund debt, so that doesn't include our wastewater debt, which is separated out in those funds. Basically, we had added some debt issuance, but we are staying pretty close to where we've been in prior years as far as payments go. Additionally, we had the last payment for the certificates of participation on the library. When that was refinanced in 2015, we had scheduled for the payments to be larger for the new private placement once those COP payments had ended. So you'll see that on the COP line, it's a 0 for the fiscal year 19-20 budget. However, the private placement 2015 refinancing our refunding is larger by that amount. And with that, we're looking at a total ending principal at the end of the year of $28 million in governmental funds. And then we are looking at, even though it's not on there, we are looking at $6.9 million for the wastewater side, which are WIFA loans and our sewer refunding revenue bonds. And so the next slide that you all have and the one on screen is just a bar graph of our total debt obligations for all the funds combined, showing that we get down to elimination of those in 2033. And this does not include our CFD debt, obviously. So, are there any questions on the debt side?
No, ma'am.
All right, then with that, I'm going to go into the CFD side. We'll start with the entertainment center. On that, it's going to be in the back of your budget books, your draft budget books. So last year with the entertainment center, they almost had $700,000. that was not going to be covered by their operations that we supplemented from the town. This year that's down to right under $650,000, so they've reduced that by about $50,000, and they are staying on track this year as far as within their budget and what was expected. And so we're looking at a drop. Last year we had $2.4 million budgeted as a transfer from the general fund to cover the entertainment center deficiency as well as the debt service. This year it's down a little over $100,000. So we're seeing some progress there. Additionally, the capital for the entertainment center is at $570,000. That's remaining funds from the second bond issue we did for improvements to the building and other things after we did the purchase. So they're expecting to finish that out towards the beginning of the next fiscal year, and we're looking at about $570,000 versus the prior year we had about $940 budgeted.
In conversation with their manager, they should be done making all the improvements that we had bonded for by September, October at the latest. So that will be done. It's been very, very helpful, and the biggest improvement out there was the parking lot, which you can see is serving that very well. They're going to be doing some recarpeting. They're going to be doing some electronic work and some lighting work. They've already done some roof repair and also worked on the compressor for the ice machine. So they're coming along on that. If you will recall, it was projected that somewhere between 3 and 5 years were going to be required before we could get them in the black. They're going in the right direction.
Yes. Are there any questions on the entertainment center before I move on to the next? All right, so next we'll talk about Parkway. So with the Parkway District, as with all our ad valorem taxing districts, we saw the assessed valuations go up this year, mostly due to property value. In the Parkway area, it was only due to property value increases, as there wasn't any new additions. And with that, we are suggesting that we up the town contribution from $50,000 that we have contributed for the last few years to $67,000. So it's an increase of $17,000 to help offset the burden to the other property owners there. That would allow us to put our rate at $12.12. Which is lower than the $12.74 from last year. However, with the property value increase, it'll basically retain a flat rate for those property owners in there. So that's for your consideration.
And Mayor and Council or Chairman and board members, if I could, to set the stage for the CFDs that you are going to be considering here, looking at here. You know, there's a game that government plays, and that is they will say, well, we're not increasing taxes. During times of increased assessed valuations, we have kept the tax rate the same. You know what? That's a game. The bottom line is, do you as a ratepayer have to pull more dollars out of your pocket or not? It's that simple. A tax increase means that on your tax bill, you're paying more for service X, Y, or Z. Although it is a true statement, we did not change your tax rate. But yet, how come you're paying $50 more for that line item? And you sit there and after 3 or 4 years of that, all of a sudden you're saying, holy mackerel, I'm paying $150 more for that CFD and the governmental body keeps telling me that they didn't raise my taxes, but each year it costs me more. And that's a game. So what we are here to share with you is that all of our CFDs are going to be revenue neutral. Okay, assessed valuation means your house is worth more this year than it was last year. Okay, so we could sit back and say, well, we're not going to touch the tax rate, but by gosh, you'd end up paying more. Our goal, and it's not a perfect science, Katie has worked very hard to make sure that we are doing the best we can to be revenue neutral for all of your CFDs, which means the rate is coming down on all of them to account for the increase in assessed valuation.
Thank you, Larry. So with that, with Parkway, we do expect to still continue to receive contributions from 2 nonprofits in the area that have agreed to parking agreements. They still, as far as we know, we're still going to be receiving those payments, and they have been really consistent with those in the past, which helps offset that burden on the other taxpayers. Do you all have any questions on Parkway before we move on?
Keep on going, Katie. You're doing well.
All right, we'll go to Pronghorn next. Again, Pronghorn saw a large increase in the assessed valuation, about $1.6 million of an increase there. However, we are going to recommend reducing the rate to $2.50 from $2.67. And that is a 6% decrease to offset that increased valuation per property. And on that, we still do receive successor and interest charges, but those are dwindling each year. Eventually, we will see those run out. At that point, we may need to reevaluate the rate structure depending on how many new homes are in the area and what our assessed value is at that time. Any questions on Pronghorn? All right, so Quailwood. On Quailwood, again, the rate last year was $2.98. We are recommending it go to $2.83. We have seen some growth in that area as well, with over $2 million in assessed value increase. More of that was due to new home construction. So hopefully that will offset in future years as well. Any questions on Quailwood? Okay. So next I'm going to go to Raven Ridge. Raven Ridge is a different area. It's a special assessment area where we actually bill out specific property owners a set amount that's already been predetermined, has nothing to do with their ad valorums. So with that, we are down to only 8 properties that we are billing in the Raven Ridge area. So that is a significant decrease over when that first started. We had many, many more properties. As those continue to be paid off, we see payoffs pretty consistently as far as properties being sold. And then we will get the full payoff, and we're hoping that we won't have to carry that one to the end of the debt service. We're hoping payoffs will happen before then. We're down to a small collection amount of less than $3,000 a year on those properties. All right, moving on from Raven Ridge, if we go to Southside, again, Southside is billed out for assessments. We have 5 properties that we bill out for that. There has been challenges with one of the properties in the past, so the town had agreed many years ago to cover that difference so the debt service could be paid. We do have ownership in the property for that amount, and we are looking at our options as far as that goes, because that does continue to grow annually.
Katie, is this south side of 69 by Navajo? Is this where this area is?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a small area of commercial properties. There's no other questions on Southside, then we'll move on to Stone Ridge, which is our last ad valorem taxing district. And in Stone Ridge, There again, we are recommending a rate decrease of approximately 5% from $2.43 to $2.31. And with that, in all those districts, as Larry said, our goal was to keep the payments flat for the majority of our taxpayers in those districts, even if they did see that increase in assessed valuation. With that, are there any other questions?
Yeah, on Stone Ridge, building more homes out there, does that help the rate go down? Is that how that works? Or is you just being out of the kindness of our heart talking?
More homes out there can help the rate, but if everyone else's property rates are increasing as well, it has to be a pretty substantial amount of new builds to offset that amount for everyone else. But it depends every year when we calculate based on what our debt service is for that year.
All right, Katie, thank you, ma'am.
Right, thank you.
With that being said, any comments from council, staff?
Another year.
If I could, I'd really like to go ahead and applaud the effort of Katie and her team and all of your department heads. They've worked hard to present you with this budget, and I believe that you've got a very good budget in front of you. And we look forward to the next steps, which will be adopting the expenditure limitation part of the budget, and then the final adoption would happen the last meeting in June.
And I just want to say that, we are blessed to have such great employees here. And I've said it ever since I became a councilwoman, that the people that work for this town really love and care about this town. Their heart's in it, and that means a lot. And I really appreciate that. Thank you for everything you do all year long and all the extras that come up, too.
All right, we're adjourned.